Okay, so now let's talk post-workout. After you lift and you know that you should stretch because it's probably what your high school sports coach told you to do is to stretch after your workouts, but you're like, I have no idea what stretches to do. Well, let me help. A few stretches, kind of full body that I like to go through. Let's start with your upper body. So you can do it sitting, you can do it standing. I always like to kind of loosen things up after a workout and just make sure that you're not just kind of tense and holding a ton of tension in your muscles, which your muscles are a little bit tight after, which is why you want to stretch. So if you roll your shoulders back, loosen it up, find some space in your gym or at home, give yourself a couple shoulder circles just to make sure that your traps, your shoulders are relaxed. And then if we come into a shoulder stretch, so nice and wide with your arms, cross one arm over the other, pulling this shoulder down and across your body, and we're just gonna hold it here. Most static stretches you wanna hold for at least 10, but really no longer than like 30, 40 seconds each side. So at least 10 seconds, trying to bring your heart rate down after your workout, open it up, switch sides, hold for another 10, 15, 20 seconds here. So that's a good upper body stretch. From here, we could come into a half kneeling hip flexor stretch. So if you watched the mobility video, this is one that we kind of oscillated in and out of before your workout. Now, if you hit legs that day, you can stretch your hip flexors, but in a more static hold. So same thing, you want to posteriorly tilt your hips, hands on your knee, and then you're just leaning into the stretch. Now remember, when you're stretching at the end of the workout, you're not doing anything super dynamic. Everything is more static. So elongating the muscles and holding it in that stretched position. So same thing, you'd hold a hip flexor stretch here for about 15, 20-ish seconds, and then you can switch sides, or since we're already in this half kneeling position, you can come right into a hamstring stretch on the opposite side. So straightening out that leg, hinging from the hip. You want to make sure that you're not rounding. So hinge from your hip, reach for the ground. If you can't touch the ground, you can put your hands on your shin, and then you're just holding here. So you want to kind of think about squaring off your hips. So if you've ever done yoga, they'll usually say energetically pull your back hip forward, push this hip back. So thinking about driving your opposite hip forward, leg that you're stretching, that hip kind of gets pulled back so your hips are super squared off, and you should feel this a ton in your hamstring. And then from here, to stretch out more of your inner thighs, one variation is a frog stretch. So knees would come nice and wide, different than a child's pose because you're pushing your hips back to get a good stretch in your hips and in your inner thighs, and then come down onto your forearms. The wider your feet are, the harder of a stretch this will be. See, I can't sit back too far with my feet this wide, but if I bring my feet closer together, now I can sit way back onto my heels. So finding somewhere where it feels like a good stretch in your hips, but it's not too much where you can barely go down. So this is called a frog stretch. So you can hold this one a little longer, like 20, 30, 40 seconds here. This is also a really good stretch if you're a runner for after you run to really loosen up your hips, that you just did a lot of linear movement and you're going to want to loosen up those hips. You can also do a pigeon stretch, which I really like. And as for the pigeon stretch, you can hold this one a lot longer because you want to give your body time to relax into the stretch because it can be uncomfortable. So you're going to take one knee, bend it up in front of you, bring that foot up as high as you comfortably can. From here, you can stay up onto your hands, which is a little bit easier of a stretch, but if you want to go deeper into your hip, into your glute, then you'll come down onto your forearm. People have a tendency to want to hold yourself up with your upper body or with this glute, but really try to relax everything. Have your lower body, your upper body, everything feel nice and heavy on the ground, and just relax into this stretch. This is also a good stretch to kind of focus on your breathing. So taking a slow inhale through your nose and then an even slower exhale out through your mouth. Pro tip while we're talking about breathing and while we're holding this stretch is that when you're trying to relax yourself after a workout or after a run, after a cardio session, in order to bring your heart rate down, what's going to do that is the exhalation on your breathing. So you want to make sure that your exhale is longer than your inhale. That's going to bring your body back down into its parasympathetic state or its kind of rest and relaxation state. So make sure that your exhale is longer than your inhale. It will slow your breathing and slow your heart rate down. And then of course, bring yourself back up, bring that leg back, other leg comes up, relaxing down into your forearm, bringing this foot up as high as you can and relax into this stretch here. So those are some good glute stretches there. One way you can hit your quad is a simple standing quad stretch. So if you come up against a wall, if you need it for your balance, grab onto the wall, grab your foot behind you and just kind of pull your heel in towards your butt, hold it here. That's a good quad stretch that I really like to do. So you might find that, wow, there's a lot of lower body exercises, but what about if it was Monday and I just had a big chest day? Well, a good chest, pec, shoulder stretch you can do is a chest stretch up against a doorway if you're at home, or squat rack if you're at a gym. So one forearm is going to come up against the squat rack. You're going to step forward with your opposite foot, and then you are driving your chest forward, holding this stretch here. You should feel this right across your pec and the anterior part of your shoulder, and you can hold it here for about 10, 20, 30 seconds, whatever feels good, and then relax out of it. I would say come into it again and hold it. So remember, there's no specific right or wrong way to stretch. It's really just doing it and doing what feels good. So you can hold it a little shorter, a little longer. You can do it 1, 2, 3 times on each side, but making sure that it's symmetrical and you're doing both sides. So again, forearm up against the doorway or the squat rack, step forward with your opposite foot, drive your chest forward, should feel that stretch right across the front of your upper body, and hold it here. So that's another good upper body stretch I like to do. So if these stretches were helpful, save this video for later, hit the like button, whatever you gotta do so you can refer back to it after your workout if you know that you should stretch but you have no idea what stretches to do. Hope it helped.